and I am tired of this because I've been nice and I've been humble with it, but I am tired of it.
It's not about black and white. It's about that white player and that black player.
Angel Reese, she is a headache, and I know factually no one enjoys playing with her.
Picture this, you finally get the world's attention after 28 years of trying. Viewership is up, arenas are selling out, and everyone's talking about women's basketball. Then your two biggest stars, the ones who made all of this happen, basically vanish. One can't stop getting injured, it's not like you were doing a good job protecting her anyway, and the other can't stop throwing her teammates under the bus. And somehow, some way, the league is still claiming that everything's fine because they're averaging, wait for it, 794,000 viewers per game. Yeah, we need to discuss what's going on in the WNBA right now. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to get the latest NBA news. And now that we got all of that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. The WNBA just fumbled the bag in the most amazing way possible. And before you come at me in the comment section and say, Mike, you just like hating on the WNBA for views, just hear me out, because the numbers tell a story that nobody wants to admit. Let's start with what should have been the league's crown jewel matchup. I mean, come on, guys. There's a reason the WNBA scheduled the Indiana Fever versus the Chicago Sky for the end of the season. It was supposed to be Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese, Friday night, primetime, the rivalry that literally saved women's basketball, right? Except here's the thing, Caitlin Clark hasn't touched a basketball court since July 15. She's been sitting at home with a groin injury that just ended her entire season. And Angel Reese, this is where it gets crazy. She's been serving suspensions for basically telling the Chicago Tribune that her teammates suck and that she wants out. I'm not joking, and if you think that's crazy, this story gets way worse. Week 1 has already passed and we've already made $1,000 since the NFL season started by leveraging PrizePicks' free square promo, and now we have another free square for week 2. Taylor Swift's fiance just needs one receiving yard for his square to hit. And no, I'm not talking about the hit he laid on Xavier Worthy, I'm saying for his square to cash. And here's my plan to turn your free sign-up money and lineups into $150. So first, to get the $50 in free lineups, you need to go to the description down below and sign up for PrizePicks, or use my promo code microphone when you sign up so this can be risk-free for you. Then make sure you select Travis Kelce over half a receiving yard. I'm taking Tua's over on pass yards versus the New England Patriots because I don't think Tua's gonna have another bad game, and the New England Patriots defense hasn't won me over. I have Brock Purdy going over on his passing yards versus New Orleans. He was able to do this in week 1 versus the Seahawks, and he had a horrible game in week 1 versus the Seahawks, so I think he easily clears this. If you just signed up, you put in $25, it's risk-free for you guys for a chance to win $150 in real cash. Now, if you've already signed up, I have you covered as well. My Discord community has already been profiting like crazy as a result of this new season, and if you want to join, just click on the WAP link in the description down below. And thank you, PrizePicks, for today's sponsor. This was supposed to be the year, and no, not in the way that a delusional Dallas Cowboy fan says that this year is supposed to be our year, but if you look at the statistics, this year was supposed to be the year that the WNBA took a huge step forward. After Clark and Reese exploded onto the scene in 2024, drawing record crowds and getting people who never watched women's basketball to suddenly care, 2025 was gonna be the victory lap. The WNBA averaged 657,000 viewers in 2024, the highest in 24 years. They had 22 games that broke 1 million viewers. The All-Star game hit 3.4 million. Everything was trending up, and to be honest, a lot of it didn't make sense. I mean, did you watch the All-Star game? So let's start with the elephant in the room that everyone's been tiptoeing around. Caitlin Clark, you know, the player who was supposed to be the WNBA's golden ticket to mainstream success, has only played in 13 games this season. I wonder why that is. I mean, it's not like this happened last season.
I mean, that's clearly which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary?
Or I don't know, this.
With no whistle.
It's not like they tried to keep her out of the Olympics, and it's not like they were refusing to promote her. Now, Caitlin Clark only played in 13 games out of 41. Now, before some of you guys start roasting me in the comment section, let me put this into perspective for you. This is the same player who brought 2.45 million viewers to the WNBA draft. That's a 307% increase from the previous year. This is the player who helped the league achieve 23 games with over 1 million viewers, more than they'd had in the previous decade combined. And she's been watching from the bench for most of the season. But here's where it gets really interesting, and trust me, you're gonna want to hear this next part. Clark has dealt with 3 separate injuries this season: a left quad, a left groin, and a right groin injury. For someone who has never missed a game in 4 years at Iowa or during her entire rookie WNBA season, this is absolutely unprecedented. The timing, absolutely brutal. The league just locked in a 11-year, $2.2 billion media rights deal, largely built on the Caitlin Clark effect, and now their biggest draw is done for the year. But hold up, because the numbers I'm going to show you is going to absolutely blow your mind about just how dependent this league has become on one player. And when I tell you about the Angel Reese situation in a few minutes, you're going to see why this dependency is creating some serious problems. The viewership numbers tell the whole story. When Clark plays, Fever games average 1.26 million viewers. When she doesn't, Fever viewership on NBA TV drops about 40%. That's not just concerning, that's terrifying for a league that's built so much of its recent momentum around one person. Now, if you thought Clark's injury problems were the league's biggest headache, buckle up, because what Angel Reese just did to her own team is absolutely insane, and I don't think I've ever seen it in all of sports. And bear in mind, I cover multiple sports. Angel Reese, fresh off of another double-double performance, decided to completely air out her teams in the most public way possible. In an interview with the Chicago Tribune, Reese basically said what everyone was thinking, but nobody should ever say out loud. Her teammates are just not good enough to win. Here's her exact quote: "I'm not settling for the same that we did this year. We have to get good players. We have to get great players. That's a non-negotiable for me." So she's pretty much calling her entire team trash. But you guys, it gets so much worse. She specifically called out veteran Courtney Vandersloot, a 36-year-old player that without a doubt has one of the coolest last names I've ever seen. She's been in the league for years, and Angel Reese said this about her: "We can't rely on Courtney to come back at the age that she's at. I know she'll be a great asset for us, but we can't rely on that. We need someone probably a little younger." Bro, you just don't do that. You don't throw a veteran under the bus like that in front of the media. That's like your teammate going on ESPN and saying you're washed and need to retire. How are you supposed to show up to practice after that? The Chicago Sky were not having it. They suspended Reese for the first half of their next game for statements detrimental to the team. Can we just talk about how funny that is? The punishment was a suspension for half a game. And this came on top of her already missing a game because she accumulated 8 technical fouls, which triggers an automatic suspension. But believe me, it gets even messier when Angel Reese tries to clean this up and somehow makes it worse. Plus, I'm going to show you why this drama is actually a symptom of a much bigger problem in the WNBA that nobody wants to talk about. Now, I get it. The Chicago Sky are 10-31 at the time that I'm recording this video. That's rough. There's no doubt about it. But when you're a second-year player, maybe don't publicly destroy your teammates' confidence on your way out the door. Former WNBA players are now saying Reese should never put on a Sky jersey again. That's how bad this got after these comments. And here's the kicker: Reese tried to walk it back, claiming her comments were taken out of context and that she didn't mean to intentionally put down any teammates.
I think the language is taken out of context. I mean, I really didn't intentionally mean to put down my teammates.
Come on, Angel. When you specifically name players and say they're too old and need to be replaced, how exactly is that being taken out of context? Now, here's where this story takes the craziest turn, and this is why I told you to stick around, because this next part is going to absolutely blow your mind. While we're talking about all these problems and drama, the WNBA just had its most successful season in its entire history. Let me hit you with some numbers that are absolutely insane. Regular season viewership hit over 54 million unique viewers. Attendance was up 17% league-wide. ESPN's WNBA viewership increased 170% to over 1.2 million average viewers. viewers. CBS had its highest rated WNBA games in 23 years. The league signed that massive media rights deal that will pay them at least $200 million annually starting in 2026. So why is everyone acting like the league is about to collapse? Why am I making this video? Because success changes everything. And what I'm about to tell you about the labor war brewing behind the scenes is going to show you exactly why this success might be the WNBA's biggest problem. This is where things get really interesting, and honestly, it might be the most important part of the video. The WNBA Players Union opted out of their collective bargaining agreement, and the current deal expires on October 31st, and the players aren't asking for small raises. They want revolutionary change. We made videos on this before. During the 2025 All-Star Game, players wore Pay Us What You Owe Us shirts during warm-ups. That was a declaration of war against the WNBA. Here's the math that's driving this entire fight, and these numbers are crazy. Sports economists estimate the WNBA will make at least $500 million in revenue next year. If the players got 50% of that revenue like their NBA counterparts do, the average WNBA salary would jump from $120,000 to $1.49 million. That's more than a 10x increase. The league's response, according to players, meetings with Kathy Engelbert have been a missed opportunity to come closer on terms. Translation, the owners aren't budging. And here's the nuclear option that nobody wants to talk about, but I'm gonna tell you anyway because this could change everything. There's talk about a potential lockout, and this would be unprecedented in WNBA history. Imagine if the league finally hits the mainstream, signs massive TV deals, breaks every record in the books, and then shuts down because they can't agree on how to split the money. That would honestly be the most WNBA thing ever. I mean, it's so consistent with their personality. You get this golden child that makes everyone interested in the WNBA, but you fail to promote her because everyone's super jealous of her. You fail to protect her and she could only play 13 games out of the year. The other golden child isn't necessarily as good, but at least she's very entertaining and creates great engagement bait. Now you finally get this record-setting deal, but since players are so greedy, you might shut down the league and lose even more of your momentum. You guys already knew about the labor dispute because we talked about it in many other videos in the past, but I had to bring it up because, well, to complete this video. But the labor dispute is really just the tip of the iceberg, guys. The WNBA is dealing with systemic issues that go way deeper than contract negotiations. Let me break down some of the problems for you that are honestly embarrassing for a professional sports league. The league has a serious officiating problem. Unlike NBA referees who are salaried employees, WNBA refs are paid by the game and work NCAA games in the winter. So these refs are constantly switching between different rule books and different paychecks. The NBA has a replay center in Secaucus with dedicated officials reviewing calls. The WNBA, they have refs reviewing their own calls on the court. Fouls are up to 18.7 per game, the highest since 2017. Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White summed it up perfectly. When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long, this is what happens. But wait, there's more. The WNBA is directly tied to the NBA's success, and like we talked about in our last video on my channel, the NBA is having its own massive ratings crisis, but somehow they're not fighting for survival. Why? Because they just signed one of the craziest media rights deals in NBA history. Yeah, it screws over the common viewer, and we have a separate video on that I'll leave in the end screen, but let me hit you with some numbers that'll make you understand why WNBA players are so fed up. NBA ratings are down 5% this season, which might not sound like much until you realize that's on top of years of decline. Compared to the 2011-12 season, NBA viewership is down about 48%. ESPN's NBA doubleheader on opening night was down 42% from last season. Joe Mazzulla famously said this:
I don't watch NBA games.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't like watching the games.
When the coach of the best team in the league says he doesn't enjoy watching basketball, you know there's a problem. But there's a difference that's driving WNBA players crazy. The NBA just signed a 11-year, $77 billion media rights deal. Their players make millions of dollars regardless of viewership. WNBA players are watching their league break every record in the books and still fighting for basic revenue sharing, which is why players are so frustrated. But let's circle back to the elephant in the room that everyone's afraid to talk about. Sports economists have noted how precariously the WNBA's visibility rests on Caitlin Clark, and the numbers back this up in a scary way. Clark appeared in 21 of 23 WNBA games that reached 1 million viewers. That's not a knock on players like Aja Wilson, Angel Reese, or Sabrina Ionescu. They're all incredible, but when one player is involved in 91% of your most watched games, you've got a dependency problem. What happens when Caitlin Clark retires? What happens when she gets injured for an entire season? What happens if she just stops being as popular? The league has built so much of its recent momentum around one player that her absence creates immediate, measurable impacts on viewership and revenue, and that's just not a sustainable business model. The success has created some ugly tension within the league itself, and this is where things get really messy. There have been complaints about the heightened physicality and targeting of Clark by other players, with some suggesting jealousy over her income and attention is contributing to the drama. Austin Rivers put it bluntly:
women's basketball as a whole, for the longest time, did not garner a lot of attention and the proper respect. For the longest time, the WNBA was synonymous for a lot of things. Not making a lot of money, actually losing money, their athletes not being compensated properly, their athletes not being treated properly, and now this woman comes along and brings the world in and is now giving y'all that proper attention, and instead of being an appreciative and acknowledging that, you guys are like coming at her with these like hate comments.
And here's another wrinkle that not enough people are talking about. The WNBA just announced expansion into 3 more cities over the next 5 years: Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia, bringing the total to 18 teams. That sounds great on paper, but expansion means diluting talent, increasing costs, and potentially weakening the product on the court. The league is betting that its current momentum will sustain growth even as it spreads its talent even thinner. But what if the Clark effect doesn't last? What if the labor dispute derails everything? Suddenly, you've got 18 teams instead of 13, and potentially weaker basketball being played in front of smaller crowds. This is a recipe for disaster. And the fact that the NBA is moving games to Amazon Prime Video, Peacock, League Pass, and is almost impossible to watch as a result of their new media rights deal doesn't help things. This will likely decrease viewership since people will have access. And the WNBA will face similar challenges as more content moves to streaming platforms. But unlike the NBA, which has decades of established fandom and massive contracts that guarantee revenue regardless of viewership, the WNBA is still building its audience. Moving games behind paywalls could stunt the growth that's driving all the current optimism. And if that happens while these other problems are brewing, then yikes. So here's what's really happening. The WNBA is experiencing growing pains that come with success, but they're not handling it properly. For years, this league operated in relative obscurity with modest expectations. Players were grateful for any opportunity to play professionally. Fans were just happy that women's basketball existed at a professional level. Everyone was on the same page, but success changes everything. With franchise valuations escalating and expansion teams paying massive fees, owners now have serious money invested. Players see the revenue growth and want their fair share. Fans expect higher quality officiating and production values. The problem is that the league's infrastructure hasn't caught up to its ambitions. They're trying to operate like a major professional sports league while still using systems designed for a small niche operation. The WNBA is at a crossroads right now, and I'm not being dramatic. The next 12 months will literally determine whether this league becomes a sustainable major professional sports operations or goes down as a cautionary tale about how success can breed its own destruction. As WNBA PA President Nneka Ogwumike put it, "We just want to make sure that this is a deal that's done the right way and using whatever time it takes for us to be able to have both sides agree on something. The labor negotiations will be crucial. If the players and owners can find a middle ground that shares revenue fairly while maintaining financial sustainability, the league could emerge stronger than ever. But if those talks drag into a lockout, all the momentum from the Clark effect could evaporate overnight." The irony that makes this situation so fascinating is that the WNBA's problems are largely the result of its success. Player empowerment, labor disputes, expansion talks, increased scrutiny of officiating. These are all problems that successful leagues deal with. The difference is that most leagues deal with these problems after decades of growth and stability. The WNBA is trying to handle major league problems with minor league infrastructure, and that's a recipe for disaster. But success is fragile, especially in sports entertainment. The league that spent decades fighting for relevance relevance now has to prove it can handle prosperity. The players who spent years being underpaid now have to negotiate fairly without killing the golden goose. The fans who finally have mainstream women's basketball have to stick around when the novelty wears off. Despite all of these challenges, the league is still seeing unprecedented growth. Merchandise sales are through the roof, and new media deals are bringing in unprecedented revenue. But here's what I think, guys. The WNBA asked for attention and they got it. They asked for investment and they got it. They asked for respect and they're getting it. But as any athlete will tell you, sometimes getting what you want is the easy part. The hard part is proving that you deserve to keep it. Caitlin Clark will hopefully be healthy for 2026. Angel Reese might learn that leadership means building up your teammates instead of tearing them down. The labor negotiations might result in a fair deal that keeps everyone happy. The officiating might improve. The expansion might work perfectly, or none of that might happen. And that's what makes this story so compelling. The WNBA is either about to become everything it's always wanted to be, or it's about to learn that success can be just as dangerous as failure. So let me know in the comment section down below, because I don't know if you guys heard, but the NBA has created a complete disaster for its fans. I made a completely separate video on this topic. I'm going to leave it in the end screen. I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.